When the last great American hotels fell, they took with them more than just marble columns and gilded ballrooms. They carried away an entire philosophy of what hospitality could mean. They were masterpieces of ambition, where every detail, from the morning paper's precise placement to the way light fell through stained glass onto Persian carpets, was choreographed to create moments of wonder. These weren't just places to rest. They were theaters where American society performed its grandest dramas, where every afternoon tea could spark a romance and every elevator ride might lead to an encounter with history. Standing sentinel in our greatest cities, they watched America transform from Victorian propriety to Jazz-Age abandon, only to vanish themselves, leaving behind ghosts of grandeur that haunt our collective memory of what luxury once meant. Step onto Fifth Avenue in the Roaring Twenties, and you'd witness a sight that would stop you in your tracks. The majestic Savoy-Plaza Hotel soaring 33 stories into the Manhattan sky, its Beaux-Arts facade gleaming in the morning sun. Doormen in gold-braided uniforms usher in guests beneath a bronze marquee, while Rolls-Royces idle at the curb. And above, twin chimneys crown what locals call Zukor's rooftop chateau, the penthouse home of Paramount Pictures founder. This architectural masterpiece, which took 3 years and $30 million to build, would host European royalty, Hollywood stars, and Manhattan's elite for decades. Yet today, if you stand at that same prestigious corner where Fifth Avenue meets Central Park South, you'll find no trace of this grand hotel. Thus, in today's episode, we'll explain how the Savoy-Plaza vanished in the middle of the 20th century, showing how the story of its rise and fall mirrors New York's complex relationship with progress, as we describe. Why New York's most luxurious Gilded Age skyscraper hotel was destroyed. The 1920s marked the zenith of America's first skyscraper age. Manhattan had become a laboratory for architectural innovation, where steel-frame construction and high-speed elevators allowed buildings to climb ever higher into the sky. This vertical race transformed not just the city's skyline, but the very notion of luxury itself. The Woolworth Building had set new standards for commercial architecture in 1913, while hotels like the Plaza and the Ritz-Carlton established Fifth Avenue as America's most prestigious address. The era demanded grandeur on an unprecedented scale. Wealthy New Yorkers, enriched by the booming stock market and inspired by European grand hotels, expected their city to rival Paris and London in sophistication. They had experienced the opulent George V in Paris, with its Louis XV furniture and crystal chandeliers, and London's newly opened Savoy Hotel, which boasted the first electric lights and elevators in a British hotel. The Ritz Paris, opened in 1898, particularly stirred their envy with its garden terraces and palatial suites that hosted European royalty. The surviving hotels from the previous century, despite their elegance, were increasingly seen as relics of a more modest age. The Fifth Avenue Hotel, once considered the height of luxury with its steam heating and passenger elevator, now seemed quaint. The Astor house, despite its marble columns and grand dining room, lacked modern amenities. Even the prestigious Windsor Hotel's shared bathrooms and gas lighting marked it as belonging to a bygone era. Modern travelers demanded private bathrooms, telephones, and the latest innovations in comfort and convenience, including climate control and in-room dining services. The architectural firm McKim, Mead and White understood these evolving expectations perfectly. By 1927, they had established themselves as America's preeminent architects, having designed not only Pennsylvania Station and the original Pennsylvania Hotel, but also the Boston Public Library, the University Club, and the Harvard Club. Their mastery of the Beaux-Arts style, learned at Paris's École des Beaux-Arts, combined with their innovative approach to modern amenities, made them the natural choice for a prestigious new hotel project. Their designs married European classical traditions with modern American engineering, creating spaces that felt both timeless and thoroughly contemporary. When they were commissioned to design a new hotel at 5th Avenue and 59th Street, they knew it had to be extraordinary. The site itself demanded something spectacular. Facing Central Park at its most famous corner, the location represented the intersection of old money and New York's commercial future. The Plaza Hotel across the street had set a high standard for luxury when it opened 1907. The surrounding neighborhood included the mansions of the Vanderbilts, the Astors, and other industrial magnates who had transformed Fifth Avenue into Millionaire's Row. The corner also marked the transition from the shopping district below to the residential elegance of Upper Fifth Avenue, making it one of the most visible and prestigious locations in the city. The answer would be a sophisticated fusion of beaux-arts, grandeur, and modern American business efficiency. A hotel that could serve as both a social center and a vertical city unto itself. In the heart of Manhattan, where Fifth Avenue meets Central Park, once stood a monument to America's gilded dreams. The Savoy-Plaza Hotel, rising 33 stories into the New York sky, was more than just a building. It was a symbol of an era when architecture dared to touch the clouds and luxury knew no bounds. On the 1st of October 1907, as autumn painted Central Park in golden hues, the Savoy-Plaza opened its doors for the first time. At a staggering cost of $30 million, a fortune in those days, this masterpiece of stone and steel had replaced its predecessor, the Savoy Hotel. The original Savoy, which had served New York's elite since 1892, was itself a grand 12-story hotel that had helped establish this corner of Manhattan as a destination for luxury and sophistication. The architectural firm McKim, Mead and White, already legendary for their work across America, had outdone themselves. Their creation soared 420 feet above Fifth Avenue, its innovative engineering pushing the boundaries of what seemed possible. The Beaux-Arts style, with its classical proportions and elegant details, spoke of European grandeur filtered through American ambition. Every carved stone, every gleaming window, every graceful curve declared that New York had arrived on the world stage. The Savoy-Plaza claimed one of the most coveted views in all of Manhattan, standing proudly alongside its neighbor, the Plaza Hotel. From its windows, guests gazed out over the emerald expanse of Central Park, watching the seasons change across the treetops while living in unparalleled splendor. At the very top of this urban palace, a unique feature set tongues wagging across Manhattan society. The distinctive double chimneys and slanted roof formed what became known as Zukor's Rooftop Chateau, the penthouse home of Paramount Pictures founder Adolph Zukor and his wife. From this prestigious perch, the Zukors hosted Hollywood royalty, bridging the worlds of New York society and the burgeoning film industry. The Savoy-Plaza quickly established itself as New York's premier stage for high society. Through its revolving doors passed European nobility, Hollywood stars, and industrial titans. The hotel's restaurants and ballrooms became legendary. The Café Lounge hosted society weddings, while the intimate Savoy Room attracted the city's power brokers. By the 1930s, the building stood as a symbol of America's rise to global prominence, rivaling the grandest European establishments in sophistication and style. During World War II, the hotel adapted to serve a changing clientele. While maintaining its luxury standards, the Savoy-Plaza welcomed military officers and government officials, becoming a crucial meeting point for wartime planning and diplomacy. The hotel's endurance during these years only enhanced its reputation as a New York institution. The post-war era brought new challenges. The rise of air travel changed travel patterns, while newer hotels offered modern amenities that appealed to changing tastes. Despite these pressures, the Savoy-Plaza initially maintained its position through strategic updates and its unmatched location. Recognizing the need to modernize, Hilton Hotels acquired the property in January 1957 through a stock exchange with Savoy-Plaza, Inc. The following year brought significant changes. The traditional Red Coach Inn was replaced by the fashionable Trader Vic's restaurant, bringing Polynesian cuisine and exotic cocktails to Fifth Avenue. In late 1958, the hotel was renamed the Savoy Hilton, marking the complete merger with Hilton Hotels Corporation. Throughout these transitions, the building remained a symbol of an era when New York architecture dared to be both beautiful and bold. Its Beaux-Arts facade continued to command attention at its prestigious corner, even as the city around it embraced modernism. Each change in ownership and name represented not just a business transaction, but an attempt to preserve the grandeur of a bygone age while adapting to the demands of a rapidly evolving city. The final chapter of the Savoy-Plaza's story began quietly on the 31st of December 1958 with a corporate merger. The hotel became the Savoy Hilton, joining Conrad Hilton's growing empire of luxury properties. The name change marked more than just new ownership. It signaled the beginning of a tumultuous period that would ultimately lead to the building's destruction. The hotel's fate accelerated through a dizzying series of transactions. In May 1962, Hilton sold the property to Webb and Knapp Inc. for $25 million, but the ink had barely dried on that deal before Webb and Knapp spun off most of their interest. By November of that same year, British commercial property investments held a two-thirds stake, with London Merchant Securities controlling the remaining third. These rapid ownership changes reflected the increasingly speculative nature of Manhattan real estate in the early 1960s, and each transition brought new uncertainty. In 1964, Hilton negotiated an early exit from their management contract, which had been set to run through 1967. Western International Hotels took over operations on the 2nd of June 1964 and restored a version of the original name, the Savoy-Plaza, though without its historic hyphen. This gesture toward tradition would prove short-lived. The true intentions for the property became clear on the 21st of August 1964, when the owners announced plans for demolition. The timing was particularly cruel. The hotel remained open through the 1964 New York World's Fair, serving visitors even as plans for its destruction moved forward. On the 16th of December 1964, the owners unveiled architect Edward Durell Stone's design for a 48-story office tower that would serve as General Motors' Eastern headquarters. The Savoy-Plaza closed its doors for the last time in October 1965, and demolition crews moved in shortly after. The wrecking balls that brought down the elegant Beaux-Arts structure between late 1965 and early 1966 would echo far beyond Fifth Avenue. The hotel's destruction, occurring just as New York was beginning to grapple with questions of architectural preservation, became a powerful symbol of the conflict between progress and heritage. More than just a luxury hotel was lost. Its demolition marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new consciousness about the value of historic architecture in American cities. In the immediate aftermath, the public's response to losing the Savoy-Plaza manifested in unexpected ways. New Yorkers who had walked past the hotel for decades without a second glance suddenly found themselves mourning its absence. The empty space on Fifth Avenue stood as a stark reminder of what had been lost, not just a building, but a piece of the city's soul. Letters flooded local newspapers with writers expressing regret that they hadn't fought harder to save the landmark. The timing proved critically important. Just months before the hotel's destruction, Mayor Robert Wagner had signed the New York City Landmarks Law, creating the Landmarks Preservation Commission. While this came too late for the Savoy-Plaza, the hotel's loss added urgency to the commission's work. Within its first year, the LPC designated hundreds of buildings for protection, representing a dramatic shift in how the city valued its architectural heritage. The preservation movement gained momentum, powered by a new understanding that progress didn't necessarily mean destroying the past. Developers who had once freely demolished historic buildings now faced public scrutiny and legal hurdles. The Savoy-Plaza became a cautionary tale, frequently cited in debates over proposed demolitions. "Remember the Savoy" became a preservationist battle cry. Perhaps most significantly, the hotel's destruction helped change public perception about the value of historic architecture. New Yorkers began to see their old buildings not as impediments to progress, but as irreplaceable cultural assets. The argument that had failed to save the Savoy-Plaza, that architectural heritage had intrinsic worth beyond mere dollars and cents, began to resonate with both citizens and civic leaders. The impact rippled far beyond New York. Cities across America studied the Savoy-Plaza case as they developed their own preservation laws. Preservation groups sprang up nationwide, often explicitly modeling their tactics on the battles fought over the hotel. The message was clear. Once these architectural treasures were gone, they were gone forever. The site today, occupied by the General Motors building, tells its own story about changing urban priorities. While the modernist tower serves its intended purpose as a corporate headquarters, many architects and historians argue that Manhattan lost something irreplaceable in the bargain. The sleek efficiency of the GM building, they contend, could never match the Savoy-Plaza's elegant witness to a more gracious era. Looking back, preservation experts now view the Savoy-Plaza's destruction as a necessary sacrifice that ultimately served a greater good. Its loss helped establish the legal framework and public support necessary to protect countless other buildings. The hotel's demolition marked the end of an era when New York's architectural heritage could be destroyed without consequence or consideration. Today, the Landmarks Preservation Commission oversees more than 37,000 protected buildings in New York City. Each time the Commission meets to consider a new designation, the ghost of the Savoy-Plaza hovers in the background. Its absence continues to inform discussions about balancing progress with preservation, development with heritage. The legacy of the Savoy-Plaza extends into current debates over architectural preservation. When contemporary developers propose demolishing historic buildings, preservationists can point to concrete examples of what can be lost. The hotel's destruction helped establish the principle that architectural heritage belongs not just to property owners, but to the city and its citizens. As New York faces new challenges in the 21st century, the lessons of the Savoy-Plaza remain relevant. The hotel's story reminds us that cities must constantly balance growth with preservation, innovation with tradition. Its loss taught New York and America that progress needn't come at the expense of history, and that a city's character resides in its architectural heritage as much as in its new developments. The Savoy-Plaza Hotel, though long gone, thus achieved a kind of immortality. Its physical presence lasted less than 4 decades, but its influence on historic preservation continues to shape the face of American cities today. In its absence, it taught New York an invaluable lesson about the true cost of progress. These days, when you think of Miami, you think of neon-lit South Beach clubs and gleaming Brickell Avenue towers scraping the tropical sky. But long before Miami earned its reputation as a playground for the international jet set, there stood a wooden palace that first taught America's wealthy how to winter in style. Indeed, the Royal Palm Hotel, Henry Flagler's masterpiece of Victorian splendor, transformed a frontier trading post into a sanctuary for industrial titans and political power brokers. Rising 5 stories above the Miami River's mouth, this pioneering establishment introduced the city to such modern marvels as electric lights and elevators, while perfecting the art of luxury hospitality. And yet, in the year 1930, when wrecking balls finally silenced the Royal Palm's grand halls in 1930, they didn't just demolish a building, they erased the last physical trace of Miami's original Golden Age. In today's episode, we share the true story of this legendary hotel, from its ambitious conception to its dramatic demise, as we describe why Miami's most opulent hotel was demolished. The Royal Palm Hotel loomed large over Miami's nascent cityscape. 5 stories of unabashed opulence, topped with a 6th-floor salon that positively dripped with exclusivity. And in an age when most Floridians were still fumbling with gas lamps, this architectural triumph dazzled with Miami's first electric lights, while its groundbreaking elevators whisked guests skyward and its swimming pool offered respite from the tropical heat. Within its walls, 450 guest rooms and suites catered to the cream of society, with 100 rooms flaunting what was then the height of modern luxury, private baths. The main dining room seated 500 of the world's most influential figures, their champagne glasses tinkling amid the hum of deals being struck and secrets being shared. The amenities were naturally beyond reproach. Refined parlours hosted whispered conversations between titans of industry, while the billiards room echoed with the gentle crack of ivory balls and masculine laughter. The game rooms buzzed with strategic minds at play, but it was the 45-foot by 50-foot ballroom that truly captured the essence of high society revelry. An invisible army of 300 staff members, including 16 of the finest cooks money could secure, maintained this temple of luxury with military precision. Their efforts transformed mere hospitality into an art form, creating an atmosphere where even the most demanding guests found themselves thoroughly spoiled. The guest ledger reads like a catalogue of 20th century brilliance. John F. Kennedy strode these halls before ascending to the presidency, while Princess Margaret brought her particular brand of royal flair to the premises. Thomas Edison's genius illuminated more than just the hotel's pioneering electrical system, and F. Scott Fitzgerald's keen literary eye no doubt absorbed every decadent detail. Even baseball legend Babe Ruth traded his Yankees pinstripes for evening wear within these sophisticated confines. High society parties swirled through the hotel's spaces like champagne bubbles in a crystal flute, while political gatherings attracted power brokers who shaped Florida's destiny from the comfort of plush leather chairs. The Royal Palm Hotel wasn't merely Miami's first luxury establishment. It was the epicenter of power, privilege, and prestige in an age when such things were measured in private baths and electric lights. This was the Royal Palm at its magnificent peak, where innovation met indulgence, and every corridor whispered stories of wealth, influence, and unrestrained grandeur. In a city that would later become synonymous with luxury, the Royal Palm Hotel wrote the very first chapter in impeccable style. Yet this glittering monument to Gilded Age excess would ultimately succumb to time's relentless march, finally condemned to demolition in 1930. But before its dramatic fall, the Royal Palm needed to rise. And that ascent began with 2 visionaries who saw potential in a mosquito-laden wilderness where others saw only swamp. In the final breath of the 19th century, when American industrialists wielded more economic might than European monarchs, a most fascinating business arrangement materialized between railroad magnate Henry Flagler and the remarkably shrewd Julia Tuttle, Miami's founding mother. The year was 1895, and while most of Florida's developers were still chasing oranges and timber, these 2 visionaries saw something far more valuable: winter sunshine. And the deal was elegantly simple, yet economically brilliant. Tuttle, along with the influential Brickell family, would provide the land if Flagler would bring his railroad, and more importantly, his deep pockets, to transform a modest trading post into a winter paradise. The Royal Palm Hotel was the crown jewel of this grand bargain, strategically positioned at the mouth of the Miami River where the sweet waters met the azure expanse of Biscayne Bay. This wasn't merely about building another hotel. It was about creating an entirely new category of American leisure. While the wealthy industrialists of the Northeast huddled in their Manhattan brownstones, watching their breath freeze in the winter air, Flagler dangled before them an irresistible proposition: a freeze-free sanctuary where they could conduct business, forge alliances, and display their social prominence far from the sooty skies of Pittsburgh and Chicago. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. The Gilded Age was reaching its zenith, producing a new class of American millionaires faster than New York's finest tailors could stitch their suits. These captains of industry, these banking barons and railroad kings, weren't interested in modest accommodations. They demanded exclusivity, luxury, and most importantly, the company of their peers. Flagler, himself one of the era's most successful businessmen through his partnership with John D. Rockefeller in Standard Oil, understood precisely what his target market desired. The Royal Palm would be more than a hotel. It would be an unofficial winter boardroom for America's business elite, where deals could be struck on the veranda and alliances formed over brandy and cigars. The economic rationale was impeccable. While other Florida hotels depended on brief holiday visits, the Royal Palm was designed for extended stays, allowing wealthy families to escape the entire winter season. This meant steady, premium revenue streams that justified the hotel's lavish amenities and extensive staff. Moreover, the hotel's very existence would help transform Miami's economy. What was once a frontier outpost rapidly evolved into a sophisticated destination, with the Royal Palm serving as both catalyst and symbol of this metamorphosis. Julia Tuttle's original vision of a prosperous city rising from the Florida wilderness found its first major validation in the Royal Palm. Meanwhile, Flagler's investment proved that Miami's winter warmth could indeed be transformed into cold, hard cash. From the moment Joseph A. McDonald's construction crew broke ground, Miami's transformation from frontier outpost to luxury destination was set in motion. McDonald, who had already proven his metal-building Flagler's string of opulent hotels along Florida's coast, approached the Royal Palm project with characteristic precision and an almost obsessive attention to detail. The construction site buzzed with activity through 1896 as McDonald orchestrated a symphony of hammers, saws, and the occasional colorful curse word. And local Miamians watched in amazement as the structure grew ever higher, its wooden bones reaching skyward until the final nail was driven on the 16th of January, 1897. The grand opening on the next day, January 17th, was a masterclass in social engineering. In a stroke of diplomatic genius, the guest list merged two worlds that rarely intersected. 40 of Miami's original townspeople found themselves rubbing shoulders with the hotel's first wealthy guests. The resulting banquet was a fascinating study in contrasts. Sun-weathered pioneers in their Sunday best, alongside northern industrialists in fine silk and pearls. As gaslight gleamed off crystal glasses and silver cutlery, the evening represented the precise moment when Miami shed its frontier skin and emerged as something entirely new. Local merchants and farmers who had once traded at the mouth of the Miami River now dined in splendor, while wealthy visitors who might have previously dismissed Miami as a backwater were forced to reconsider their assumptions. The kitchen staff, already renowned from their previous positions at Flagler's other properties, produced a feast that would have been impressive even by New York standards. Each course served as a statement of intent. This wasn't merely a hotel opening, but the birth of a new era in American luxury tourism. As the evening drew to a close, even the most skeptical guests had to admit that McDonald had outdone himself. The hotel's very existence challenged the notion that genuine luxury could only be found in long-established cities of the North. And for 3 remarkable decades, this beacon of sophistication would prove its point, hosting industrial titans, political kingmakers, and society's elite in unparalleled splendor. Yet beneath its polished veneer, unseen forces were already at work. Punishing tropical weather and the relentless march of progress would conspire to bring this palace of privilege to its knees. In the fickle world of luxury hospitality, even the mightiest establishments must eventually bow to time and circumstance. The Royal Palm Hotel's slow descent from its gilded throne began subtly, even as it continued to host some of the era's most significant gatherings. The spring of 1900 saw John D. Rockefeller and his Standard Oil executives conducting business in its elegant meeting rooms, while the winter months regularly transformed the hotel into an unofficial annex of Congress, with senators and representatives escaping Washington's chill for Miami's balmy embrace. And Henry Flagler made his final visit to his crowning achievement in early 1913, perhaps sensing that both his own time and the hotel's golden age were drawing to a close. He passed away that May, and though the Royal Palm maintained its prestigious position for several years following his death, the winds of change were already stirring. By the mid-1920s, Miami's explosive growth, the very prosperity the Royal Palm had helped create, began to work against it. Newer, more modern hotels rose from the bustling cityscape, each offering fresh interpretations of luxury that made the Royal Palm's Victorian grandeur seem increasingly dated. The city's social center of gravity began to shift, and the hotel that had once defined Miami's high society found itself struggling to maintain its position. Nature delivered the decisive blow in 1926 when a devastating hurricane battered the aging structure. The storm's fury exposed weaknesses that time and termites had quietly carved into the hotel's bones. The once proud building, which had hosted presidents and princesses, now stood wounded and vulnerable. The termite infestation, long held at bay by diligent maintenance, finally gained the upper hand, accelerating the structure's decline. Then, the final chapter arrived in 1930, when city inspectors, perhaps with heavy hearts, condemned the building that had once represented Miami's emergence onto the world stage. The demolition that followed wasn't merely the removal of a building, it was the end of an era. As wrecking balls swung and timber splintered, they erased not just a hotel, but a physical link to Miami's ambitious beginnings. Yet perhaps its greatest challenge was living up to its own legacy. Having set such high standards for luxury and social prominence, it became a victim of the very expectations it had created. In the end, the Royal Palm Hotel's 33-year reign as Miami's social sovereign came to a close, leaving behind memories of an age when luxury was measured not in technological amenities, but in the quality of conversation over dinner, the gentle rustle of palm fronds in the evening breeze, and the quiet confidence of a city coming into its own. The Royal Palm Hotel's influence on Miami's character and destiny extends far beyond its brief 33-year existence. This pioneering palace of hospitality effectively wrote the blueprint for modern Miami, establishing patterns of luxury, social hierarchy, and seasonal tourism that continue to define the city well into the 21st century. Consider the mathematics of wealth that the Royal Palm perfected. Take northern fortune, add southern sunshine, multiply by social exclusivity, and the result is an entirely new economic model. This formula proved so successful that it transformed Miami from a frontier trading post into America's premier winter playground. Every luxury hotel that followed, from the Fontainebleau to the Biltmore, owes an unspoken debt to the Royal Palm's original calculus of opulence. The hotel's true genius lay in its creation of a new social ecosystem. By providing a sophisticated environment where industrial titans could mix business with pleasure, it established Miami as more than just a warm weather escape. It became an essential stop on the circuit of power and influence. Modern Miami's status as a nexus for international business and high-level deal-making can be traced directly back to those early days when Standard Oil executives and congressional delegations roamed the Royal Palm's corridors. More subtly, the hotel's influence shaped Miami's architectural and cultural aspirations. Its presence demanded a certain level of refinement from the surrounding city. Fine shops, cultural venues, and sophisticated entertainment venues all sprouted in its wake. This pattern of luxury developments attracting additional upscale amenities continues to shape Miami's growth, from South Beach to Brickell Avenue. The Royal Palm also established Miami's reputation for reinvention and renewal. Its eventual demolition, while tragic, demonstrated that the city would not cling sentimentally to past glories, but would continuously evolve to meet new standards of luxury and sophistication. This willingness to rebuild and reimagine itself has become one of Miami's defining characteristics. Perhaps most significantly, the Royal Palm Hotel proved that audacious visions could become reality in Miami. When Henry Flagler and Julia Tuttle first conceived their plan for a luxury hotel in what was essentially wilderness, it seemed like pure fantasy. Their success emboldened generations of subsequent developers and entrepreneurs, fostering Miami's reputation as a city where ambitious dreams can materialize into concrete reality. Today, as Miami stands as a global symbol of luxury and glamour, it's worth remembering that this identity was first crystallized in the halls of the Royal Palm Hotel. While the physical structure may have vanished into history, its legacy lives on in every luxury hotel, every international business deal, and every winter visitor who trades northern snow for southern sunshine. The Royal Palm didn't just serve Miami's elite, it helped create the very idea of Miami itself. Although modern interpretations of the city and county of San Francisco would have you believe the story began with tech startups and Silicon Valley, the true tale of the city's ambition was written in marble and gold long before the first microchip. In 1875, as fog rolled over Nob Hill's mansions and gaslit dining rooms echoed with the clinking of silver spoons, the Palace Hotel opened its doors to a city in transformation. At a staggering cost of over 9 figures in today's dollars, this architectural marvel represented the pinnacle of Gilded Age ambition. Its soaring glass ceiling and marble columns created a stage where mining magnates and railroad barons could showcase their newfound sophistication, while innovative amenities set new standards for luxury hospitality. For 3 decades, the Palace Hotel stood as the ultimate expression of San Francisco's evolution from rough-hewn port to world-class destination. But on a spring morning in 1906, none could have predicted that this monument to civilization's triumph would soon face a catastrophic test of survival, one that would transform both the hotel and its city forever. In the early 1870s, San Francisco pulsed with raw ambition and newfound wealth, its streets alive with the echoes of the gold rush that had transformed a modest port town into the crown jewel of the American West. And the city's finest hotels, the Occidental, the Lick House, and the Cosmopolitan, struggled to match the sophisticated tastes of mining magnates and railroad tycoons who had grown accustomed to European grandeur during their transcontinental sojourns. Enter William Chapman Ralston, the visionary financier whose Bank of California backed the most audacious ventures of the era. Surveying a city where mansions of redwood and stone were rising along Nob Hill, where the clinking of silver spoons in gaslit dining rooms signaled the emergence of high society, Ralston dreamed of creating something unprecedented, a hotel that would eclipse the finest establishments of Paris and London. The result was the Palace Hotel, unveiled in 1875 at a cost of $5 million, equivalent to well over 100 million today. Beautifully, architect John P. Gaynor's masterpiece soared 7 stories into the fog-kissed San Francisco sky, its imposing silhouette dominating the corner of New Montgomery and Market Streets. The 755-room Colossus represented the pinnacle of 19th-century innovation, featuring hydraulic elevators, whimsically dubbed rising rooms, private bathrooms, and an ingenious electronic call system that allowed guests to summon staff with the touch of a button. But it was the Grand Court that truly captured the imagination of San Francisco's elite. This magnificent central courtyard, crowned with an ethereal glass ceiling, could accommodate a quartet of horse-drawn carriages side by side. White double columns stretched toward the sky, creating an elegant colonnade where ladies in Worth gowns and gentlemen in tailored suits would promenade beneath crystal chandeliers. The palace became an instant sanctuary for the Gilded Age's most notable figures. Mining titans fresh from the Comstock lode would broker deals in private dining rooms, while railroad barons orchestrated their next strategic acquisitions. Here, one might glimpse John D. Rockefeller deep in conversation with fellow industrialists, or spot J.P. Morgan surveying the scene from his preferred corner of the Palm Court. And the hotel's 14-foot ceilings and sumptuous interiors draped in silks from Lyon and carpeted in the finest Persian weaves, provided a fitting stage for San Francisco's emergence as a world-class city. In an era when the newly wealthy sought to establish themselves among the social elite, the Palace Hotel offered more than mere accommodation. It provided an education in refinement, a crash course in the art of sophisticated living. Architects and historians still marvel at how perfectly the Palace Hotel embodied its moment in time, when San Francisco's rough-hewn past was giving way to cosmopolitan ambitions, when fortunes made in gold mines and railroad bonds were being transformed into monuments of marble and stone. In the words of one contemporary observer, the palace doesn't simply reflect San Francisco's aspirations for greatness, it reveals what the city had already become. As San Francisco surged through the economic heights of the 1880s and 1890s, the Palace Hotel reigned supreme, a magnificent anchor of luxury at the crossroads of Market and New Montgomery streets. The city's explosive growth from gold rush port to sophisticated metropolis found its ultimate expression in this remarkable establishment, where marble halls and crystal chandeliers spoke to newfound fortunes and soaring ambitions. The Palace Hotel's 755 guest rooms showcased the cutting edge of 19th century innovation. Private bathrooms, a rarity for the era, provided unprecedented comfort, while electric call buttons summoned staff with modern efficiency. The hotel's hydraulic elevators, dubbed rising rooms, carried guests skyward with a smoothness that seemed almost magical to contemporary visitors. And at the heart of this architectural marvel, a spectacular central courtyard drew natural light through its soaring glass ceiling, creating an indoor paradise where the city's elite gathered beneath towering palms. As San Francisco matured through the 1890s, rival luxury hotels emerged to chase the city's growing wealth. Yet the palace maintained its position at the pinnacle of hospitality through an unwavering commitment to excellence. While electric streetcars transformed the urban landscape and new neighborhoods bloomed across the peninsula, the palace's central location and reputation for impeccable service kept it firmly at the center of San Francisco society. The hotel's legendary bar became California's unofficial seat of power, a wood-paneled sanctuary where mining magnates, railroad barons, and political kingmakers gathered to shape the future of the American West. In the grand dining rooms, crystal glasses clinked amidst animated discussions of the latest silver strike or railroad merger. These weren't mere meals, but carefully orchestrated performances of wealth and influence, with the Palace Hotel providing the perfect stage. Each evening, as gaslight illuminated the hotel's facade, the lobby would fill with an elaborate pageant of silk-clad ladies and gentlemen in evening dress, gathering for yet another glittering social occasion. The palace had become more than a hotel. It was the beating heart of Gilded Age San Francisco, a place where old money and new fortunes mingled, where social boundaries could be redrawn over a perfectly crafted cocktail. Through an era of dramatic change, the Palace Hotel maintained its position through constant innovation coupled with steadfast tradition. As San Francisco grew around it, the palace remained both a mirror of the city's aspirations and a guardian of its most elegant traditions. Yet, around the corner was one of the darkest moments not only in the history of the Palace Hotel, but the city and county of San Francisco itself. In the pre-dawn stillness of the 18th of April 1906, San Francisco's Palace Hotel stood proud and gleaming, its grand corridors quiet as guests slumbered in luxurious repose. At 5:12 a.m., that serenity shattered along with the earth itself. A massive 7.9 magnitude earthquake violently jolted the city awake, sending tremors that would be felt from Los Angeles to Oregon's Coos Bay. The palace's magnificent glass roof, for 3 decades a symbol of architectural innovation, exploded into a deadly rain of crystalline shards, transforming the elegant Grand Court into a hazardous void. And the building's steel framework, once celebrated for its modern engineering, groaned and twisted as seismic waves rippled through its bones. Within hours, the true enemy emerged: fire. As gas lines ruptured and chimneys collapsed throughout the city, flames began their merciless march through San Francisco's heart. The inferno would ultimately devour more than 28,000 buildings across 500 city blocks, turning the nation's premier West Coast metropolis into an apocalyptic landscape. Inside the palace, staff members transformed into heroes, racing through smoke-filled corridors to evacuate guests. An opera legend, Enrico Caruso, clutching a prized photograph of Theodore Roosevelt, joined the exodus of visitors fleeing with whatever precious possessions they could carry. The evacuation succeeded in saving lives, but the building's fate was sealed as firefighters confronted the cruel reality of broken water mains and inadequate resources. Desperate authorities turned to dynamite, hoping to create fire breaks by sacrificing some buildings to save others. These explosive measures proved futile as winds drove flames toward the palace with unstoppable fury. By midday, fire engulfed the hotel's iconic facade. Flames licked at hand-carved woodwork and devoured silk wall coverings, reducing 3 decades of accumulated splendor to ash and rubble. The destruction of the Palace Hotel represented more than the loss of a prestigious address. It marked the obliteration of a social institution where California's power brokers had shaped the American West's destiny. Within its walls, mining magnates had struck deals, railroad empires had expanded, and society's elite had danced away countless glittering evenings. As smoke finally cleared from San Francisco's ravaged streets, the Palace Hotel's skeletal remains stood as a stark reminder of nature's awesome power to humble human ambition. Yet even as flames still smoldered, plans for resurrection were already taking shape, born from the same spirit of determination that had built the original palace 3 decades earlier. In the wake of San Francisco's catastrophic 1906 earthquake and fires, the decision to rebuild the Palace Hotel emerged as a powerful symbol of the city's indomitable spirit. The original palace, which had defined luxury hospitality since 1875, lay in ruins. Yet from its ashes would rise a new incarnation, one that would both honor its predecessor's legacy and pioneer a bold vision for the future. The prestigious architectural firm Trowbridge and Livingston, fresh from their triumph with New York's St. Regis Hotel, took charge of the ambitious reconstruction project. Over 3 years, they transformed the hotel's 2-acre footprint into a 9-story masterpiece housing 550 rooms. While smaller than its predecessor, the new palace would prove grander in every other respect. At the heart of this reinvention stood the Garden Court, a breathtaking space crowned with an elaborate glass ceiling originally destined for a sister property in San Diego. Thousands of individual panes arranged in intricate geometric patterns created an atmosphere of ethereal splendor, filtering California sunshine through their crystalline surfaces. The room quickly became San Francisco's most coveted venue for society gatherings, its marble columns and ornate chandeliers providing an unmatched backdrop for the city's most prestigious events. The hotel's interior spaces showcased a masterful blend of classical and contemporary design. Rich marble surfaces complemented dark wood accents, while modern amenities satisfied the sophisticated tastes of early 20th century travelers. The Pied Piper Bar, adorned with Maxfield Parrish's magnificent 16-foot mural, The Pied Piper of Hamelin, became a cultural landmark in its own right. As San Francisco entered a new era of growth and prosperity, the Palace Hotel maintained its position as the city's premier gathering place. Presidents, opera stars, and cultural icons walked its corridors. Franklin D. Roosevelt held court in its suites, while Enrico Caruso's powerful tenor echoed through its halls. The hotel's ability to evolve while honoring tradition became its defining strength. Today's Palace Hotel reflects this same dedication to excellence through careful renovation. Italian designer Beatrice Girelli's recent multi-million-dollar refresh strikes a delicate balance between historical preservation and modern luxury. Original architectural elements, soaring ceilings, expansive windows, and classical detailing now complement contemporary furnishings and amenities that appeal to 21st century guests. The modern palace offers an array of sophisticated facilities, an indoor pool crowned by an elegant skylit ceiling, a state-of-the-art fitness center, and multiple dining venues. The Pied Piper Bar and Grill still showcases Parrish's restored masterpiece, while the Garden Court continues its tradition of refined dining and legendary afternoon teas. From its central downtown location, the palace provides easy access to San Francisco's cultural landmarks, from SF MoMA to the Golden Gate Bridge. As San Francisco continues to evolve, the Palace Hotel stands firm at its heart, welcoming guests with the same grace and sophistication that has defined it for over a century. It remains not just a hotel, but a living embodiment of San Francisco's enduring commitment to excellence, beauty, and the art of gracious hospitality. Your suite at the Sands Hotel came with more than just a key. It came with a legacy. Indeed, if you were to step into the lobby in 1955, you might find yourself sharing an elevator with Sinatra, picking up gossip at the bar from Dean Martin, or watching Sammy Davis Jr. rehearse in the Copa Room. Just envision it. The air would have crackled with possibility, perfumed with high-stakes winnings and ambition. In the simmering halls of the Sands Hotel, the city's mythology was forged night after night. Civil rights battles were quietly fought between blackjack hands, and corporate America would eventually declare victory over mob-run enterprises. Certainly, the Sands stood at the crossroads of American entertainment, politics, and social change for over 40 years. And yet, on a November morning in 1996, the dream would be permanently shattered. The iconic A-frame entrance, the intimate Copa Room where legends were born, the gaming floors where fortunes changed hands, all reduced to rubble in mere seconds as demolition charges thundered through the foundation. In today's episode of Old Money Mansions, we'll share the tale of how one hotel helped shape not just a city, but American culture itself, as we describe. Why Las Vegas's most opulent hotel was demolished. The Sands Hotel in Las Vegas wasn't just a hotel, it was the pulse of the town, where glamour and debauchery held hands under neon lights. Indeed, we can roll back to the glittering 1950s, where a desert mirage of splendor with an A-frame entrance didn't just beckon you in, it dared you. And inside, the lobby was a crash course in luxury. Marble floors glistening like they'd been polished by angels, crystal chandeliers casting a glow so flattering you'd want to buy stock in it, and walls of mirrors tricking you into believing the decadence was endless. Mid-century modern chic was the name of the game, and the Sands was playing to win. Rooms and suites carried the theme of too much is just right, with custom-designed furniture, plush carpets, and floor-to-ceiling windows that let you ogle the Strip without needing to leave the comfort of your air-conditioned haven. This was the ultimate luxury in the desert. Private bars and 24-hour butlers in the top suites only underlined one fact. Here, you were royalty, or at least they made you feel like it. And at the heart of this oasis was the Copa Room. Forget stadium-sized monstrosities. This was an intimate 385-seat theater designed so meticulously that even a cough sounded like Sinatra's silky baritone. And the room's size meant stars weren't just performing. They were mingling with the audience, creating that electric charge that made the Rat Pack the stuff of legend. Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr. held court night after night, turning the Sands into an icon of cool. Forget Oscars. The Copa Room was where the real gold was won. Undoubtedly, it was Sinatra, chairman of the board himself, who made the Sands his playground, whether gambling until dawn or swaggering onto the Copa stage, leaving crowds spellbound. A night at the Sands wasn't just a night. It was an event, a ticket to the in-crowd, a glimpse into a world where money flowed like champagne and last call was a mere suggestion. Celebrities, politicians, and anyone with a bank account worth bragging about, all came to be part of Sinatra's entourage, even if they never left the casino floor. Speaking of the casino, imagine a floor alive with the charging of slot machines, cigarette smoke thick as fog, and the scent of wealth so palpable it practically stung your nostrils. Cocktail waitresses in pin-up attire navigated through throngs of hopeful gamblers, all looking for their next big win or their next refill. Beyond the glitter and games, the Sands catered to every indulgence. An Olympic-sized pool flanked by private cabanas provided a spot for basking in both the sun and your own self-importance, while gourmet restaurants served up dishes from across the globe. Bars and lounges turned deal-making into an art form, and even ordering a martini felt like a bold statement. As night fell, the Sands lit up like a beacon in the neon-soaked desert, every corner of it pulsing with life. It was here, under those dazzling lights, that the era's biggest stars reminded the world that sometimes reality is bigger than the movies. With a cast of icons like Judy Garland, Ella Fitzgerald, and even Marlene Dietrich gracing the stage, the Copa Room wasn't just hosting performances, it was making history. Antonio Morelli and his house band were practically part of the walls, creating sounds that filled the room like champagne fills a glass. They were the soundtrack to the heyday of Vegas itself, recording live albums that captured the essence of the town when it was still untamed, still wild. The Sands wasn't a mere hotel, it was an entire world. So what would make Sin City want to extinguish such a fantasy land, demolishing this dynamic desert kingdom to replace it with something new? To get our answer, let's roll back the clock a bit more and turn to the next chapter. In the vast emptiness of the Nevada desert, where natural springs once nourished patches of unexpected greenery, a city would rise that would transform not just the American West, but the very notion of what a city could be. The Spanish had called it Las Vegas, the Meadows, but the Meadows would soon be buried beneath concrete and neon, forgotten beneath the weight of ambition and enterprise. The railroad's land auction of 1905 seemed insignificant at the time, merely 110 acres sold in a remote desert outpost. Yet this modest beginning contained within it the seeds of something extraordinary. And for decades, Las Vegas remained little more than a whistle stop between Los Angeles and Salt Lake City. Its destiny was still uncertain, and its future was still unwritten. Then came 1931. As America sank deeper into the Great Depression, two events converged to alter Las Vegas's trajectory forever. First, the massive Hoover Dam project began, bringing thousands of workers to this remote corner of Nevada. They were mostly men, young and lonely, their pockets filled with regular paychecks, seeking entertainment in their off hours. That same year, Nevada legalized gambling at the local level, a decision that would prove momentous. On Fremont Street, the Northern Club received the city's first gambling license. Other establishments quickly followed. These early casinos were humble affairs, nothing like the palatial monuments that would later define the city. But they marked the beginning of a transformation. While other American cities struggled through the Depression, Las Vegas grew, its population swelling from 5,000 to 25,000. Then, the 1940s brought new catalysts for growth. Senator Pat McCarran, understanding the potential of his state's largest city, secured both a magnesium processing plant and a military airfield. The latter would become Nellis Air Force Base, anchoring Las Vegas's role in America's defense infrastructure. Returning World War II veterans, having experienced the desert climate during their training, chose to make Las Vegas their home. But it was the 1950s that truly birthed the Las Vegas of popular imagination. The Sands Hotel and Casino, rising from the desert in 1952, embodied this transformation. Its founder was Jake Friedman, a former cab driver with shadowy connections to organized crime. Friedman recruited Jack Entratter, a well-connected New York nightclub impresario, to manage the entertainment. Together, they created something unprecedented, a resort that combined gambling with top-tier entertainment and luxury accommodations. The Sands' distinctive circular tower changed the city's skyline forever. What had begun as a desert oasis, a mere stopping point on the railroad's march westward, had transformed itself into something entirely new, a city of dreams and reinvention, where the improbable became possible and the impossible became routine. And yet, it would take a crooner from New Jersey to take things to heights even this lascivious locality had never seen. The transformation of Las Vegas began with a phone call. A man named Frank Sinatra, his voice filled with rage, was berating Carl Cohen, an executive at the Sands Hotel and Casino, and the cause of Sinatra's fury was simple yet profound. A black couple had been denied entry to the hotel lobby. Sinatra had declared them his personal guests, but still, they were turned away. It was 1961, and Las Vegas remained a city defined by its contradictions, a place of limitless possibility for some, of closed doors for others. The Sands had taken tentative steps toward integration years earlier. In 1955, Nat King Cole performed there, but was forced to eat his meals alone in his dressing room, banned from the hotel's dining areas. 3 years later, when Sammy Davis Jr. demanded his father and uncle be allowed to stay at the hotel during his performances, management reluctantly agreed, but continued to bar other black guests. Sinatra wielded more than just his voice in this fight for change. By the early 1960s, he had acquired a 9% ownership stake in the Sands, giving him unprecedented influence over its operations. The Copa Room, where he performed with the Rat Pack, had become the hottest ticket in Las Vegas. Their shows, featuring Sinatra, Dean Martin, Davis, Joey Bishop, and Peter Lawford, were dubbed the Summit at the Sands, drawing crowds from around the world. In the wake of Sinatra's confrontation with management, Davis approached Jack Entrata, the hotel's entertainment director, demanding the Sands begin employing black waiters and busboys. The hotel complied, and other establishments began following suit. Las Vegas was beginning to change, but another transformation was coming. In 1967, Howard Hughes purchased the Sands for $14.6 million, and the eccentric billionaire's acquisition marked a fundamental shift in Las Vegas, from mob-influenced ownership to corporate control. Hughes harbored a personal dislike for Sinatra, stemming from their shared romantic interest in Ava Gardner years earlier. He imposed strict limits on Sinatra's gambling, restricting him to $3,000 a night. Under Hughes's ownership, the Sands' character began to change. The personal touch that had defined the mob era gave way to corporate efficiency. Hughes's management style was impersonal, focused on profits rather than relationships. The Nevada legislature passed the Corporate Gaming Act in 1967, removing financial background checks previously required of gaming license applicants. Hughes's apparent success attracted more corporate investors to Las Vegas. Sinatra departed the Sands that same year, but the changes he had set in motion continued to reshape the city. On a cold November morning in 1996, crowds gathered to witness the end of an era. The Sands Hotel and Casino, once the crown jewel of the Las Vegas Strip, stood empty against the desert sky. In its heyday, the property had hosted kings and presidents, had been the stage where the Rat Pack held court, had symbolized everything that made Las Vegas glitter. Now it would fall in seconds. But the Sands' decline had been years in the making. The 1989 opening of the Mirage had ushered in the age of the mega resort, fundamentally changing what visitors expected from a Las Vegas hotel. While the Mirage offered erupting volcanoes and white tigers, the Sands still traded on memories of Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. The newer properties dwarfed the Sands in both size and spectacle. Excalibur with its medieval turrets, Luxor with its beam of light visible from space. Sheldon Adelson had tried to save the Sands after acquiring it in 1989. His first move was building the massive Sands Expo and Convention Center in 1990, bringing in business travelers to supplement the gambling crowds. The casino floor was modernized, the rooms renovated. But these changes proved insufficient against the tide of transformation sweeping through Las Vegas. The property that had once defined luxury now seemed small, dated, almost quaint. Its location, once prime real estate on the Strip, had become less desirable as development pushed south. The intimate showrooms that had once been the Sands' greatest asset now seemed cramped compared to the vast entertainment complexes of the newer resorts. As the implosion countdown began that November morning, the Sands represented more than just another old hotel meeting its end. It symbolized the final break between two distinct eras of Las Vegas history. From mob-influenced to corporate-controlled, from intimate to massive, from spontaneous to carefully planned. The explosions started at the base. In seconds, decades of history began to crumble. The famous sign that had beckoned generations of visitors toppled. The tower where countless celebrities had slept folded in on itself. The showroom where the Rat Pack had performed disappeared in a cloud of dust. When the debris settled, nothing remained but memories and rubble. Where the Sands Hotel had once stood, Sheldon Adelson saw not rubble but possibility. You see, in 1997, as construction crews cleared the last remnants of the imploded hotel, Adelson's vision was already taking shape, a slice of Venice transported to the Nevada desert, a resort that would redefine what Las Vegas could be. The numbers alone were staggering. $1.5 billion in construction costs, 36 acres of prime strip real estate, 3,036 luxury suites. But numbers couldn't capture the obsession with authenticity that drove the project forward. Adelson dispatched teams to Venice to study every architectural detail. Italian artisans were flown in to paint frescoes across vast ceiling spans. Marble workers labored for months, creating intricate mosaics that would transport visitors from the desert to the canals of Venice. The construction site became a canvas for an unprecedented architectural fantasy. Rising from the dust came faithful recreations of the Doge's Palace, the Campanile Tower, the Rialto Bridge. Workers sculpted artificial canals where gondoliers would one day sing to passing tourists. In the center, St. Mark's Square took shape, its every detail scrutinized against photographs of the original. When the Venetian opened its doors on the 3rd of May 1999, it represented more than just another Las Vegas hotel. It embodied a fundamental shift in how the city saw itself. Where the Sands had offered intimate showrooms and personal connections with entertainers, the Venetian offered immersion in a complete fantasy world. The gambling floor, once the heart of any Las Vegas resort, became just one element in a vast entertainment complex. The Grand Canal shops stretched beneath a painted sky that cycled from dawn to dusk, while visitors strolled cobblestone pathways between luxury boutiques. Convention spaces sprawled across 1.9 million square feet, acknowledging a new reality. Business travelers had become as crucial to Las Vegas as tourists. Every suite featured marble bathrooms and sunken living rooms, a level of luxury that would have seemed impossible in the Sands era. Adelson had understood something fundamental about the new Las Vegas. Visitors no longer came just to gamble or see shows. They came for experiences, for stories to tell back home. The Venetian offered them Venice without the long flight, Italy without the passport. It was theatrical, overwhelming, exactly what the new Las Vegas demanded. The resort's success proved Adelson right. The Venetian set a new standard for what a Las Vegas hotel could be, inspiring a wave of ever more elaborate themed resorts. The city that had reinvented itself countless times had done so again, trading the intimate charm of its past for the grandiose spectacle of its future. During the middle of the Gilded Age in the city that never sleeps, where steel meets sky and ambition knows no bounds, two monumental landmarks once soared above the rest: the Astor and Waldorf hotels. Think of them not merely as hotels, but as palaces of dreams, peak shrines of American extravagance. Erected in 1905, the Astor Hotel was a celestial wonder, an embodiment of Beaux-Arts elegance, crowned by a sky garden that almost touched the heavens. Just a stone's throw away, its sibling rival, the original Waldorf Hotel, had already unfurled its opulence in 1893. A monolith of majestic architecture, this masterpiece was conceived by none other than the iconic Henry Janeway Hardenberg, inspired by the lofty German Renaissance ideals. Yet what fueled such grandiosity? Family, or specifically the Astor family, one of America's most storied old money dynasties. William Waldorf Astor graced Fifth Avenue with the Waldorf first, laying down the gauntlet. Not to be outdone, his cousin John Jacob Astor IV took the challenge head-on, responding with the Astoria Hotel, each structure a flamboyant rebuttal to the other. And yet, despite standing as monoliths of splendor, these icons of opulence faced an unforeseeable destiny. They eroded, crumbled, and ultimately were razed to the ground. In this thrilling installment of old money mansions, join us as we retell a saga that consistently echoes through the corridors of architectural history. Why were New York's most opulent hotels demolished? In the bustling urban landscape of Gilded Age New York City, amidst Fifth Avenue's burgeoning architectural splendor, emerged the unparalleled duo of the Astor and Waldorf hotels. Stemming from a family rivalry between the affluent cousins, William Waldorf Astor and John Jacob Astor IV, these luxurious havens were erected as monuments to both grandeur and one-upmanship. It all begins in 1893 when William Waldorf Astor inaugurated the Waldorf Hotel, an opulent German Renaissance marvel designed by the eminent architect Henry Hardenberg. 4 years thereafter, itching with family rivalry, William's cousin John Jacob Astor IV would grace the adjacent plot with the towering Astoria Hotel, its particular design entrusted to the celebrated architects Schulze and Weaver. However, trouble was soon afoot in the family's game of hotelier thrones. In its inaugural year, William's Waldorf Hotel faced skepticism and was colloquially known as Bolt's Folly, attributed to the proprietor George Bolt, with critics condemning the luxurious hotel as a blight upon a respectable neighborhood. However, parrying the media's doubt, Bolt ingeniously planned a charity concert for St. Mary's Hospital for Children the day after the hotel's opening. With tickets priced at $5, $163 in today's currency, New York's elite filled the grand ballroom, dismissing earlier skepticism. Thus, by the end of its first year in 1893, the Waldorf had generated an incredible $4.5 million in revenue, an astonishing sum for the time that would equal over $100 million in 2023. Not long after, in 1897, John Jacob Astor IV inaugurated the Astoria Hotel adjacent to the Waldorf. Quickly seizing on an even larger opportunity, the cousins soon agreed to a truce, creating a unified entity known as the Waldorf Astoria. With 250 feet stretching from the sidewalk to its highest point, this combined colossus reigned as the world's largest hotel, having the buildings eventually being connected through a 300-foot marble corridor known as Peacock Alley. This Peacock Alley was soon seen as a grand promenade for the who's who of New York high society that connected the Waldorf and Astoria hotels, becoming an enduring symbol of the combined social and business establishments. Now, at a staggering expenditure of approximately $5 million, equivalent to $138 million today, the Waldorf Hotel graced Fifth Avenue and 33rd Street with its German Renaissance structure, consisting of an impressive 450 guest rooms, 15 opulent public rooms, and an additional 100 rooms designated for staff. Intricate architectural features such as loggias, balconies, and gables adorned the exterior. Inside, a breathtaking garden court featuring fountains and terracotta walls offered a sanctuary of splendor. Sienna marble, mosaic tile floors, and a coffered ceiling framed the entrance hall, immediately declaring the building's opulence to anyone crossing its threshold. Delving further into the Waldorf, you could see a marble entrance that leads to the Empire Room. This dazzling space, furnished with an alcove featuring elevators and a grand staircase, swiftly gained notoriety as one of New York City's premier dining establishments, rivaling even the likes of Delmonico's and Sherry's. You see, the room was an Empire-style marvel, resplendent with mahogany pilasters, gilded accents, and lavish frescoes. Adjacent to this culinary delight was the Marie Antoinette parlor, an elegant reception room graced with 18th-century European antiques, including a cherished bust of Marie Antoinette. Bearing artistic excellence, the ceiling showcased frescoes by Will Highcock Lowe, with The Birth of Venus as the central piece. Further enhancing the hotel's splendor was the Gentleman's Cafe, a hunting-themed sanctuary adorned with robust black oak paneling and staghorn chandeliers. This was complemented by suites such as the Henry IV drawing room, furnished with rare French and Italian antiques, as well as a banquet hall seating 20 and a music room. And while the Waldorf was indeed a paragon of opulence, its sibling, the Astor Hotel, was no less grand. Opened in 1897 and situated at the intersection of Fifth Avenue and 34th Street, this 16-story marvel was also designed by Henry J. Hardenberg. Boasting 25 public rooms and 550 guest rooms, its dimensions were grandiose, extending 270 feet from its sub-basement to its roofline. Constructed of stone, marble, and brick, its architectural style was a harmonious blend of French Second Empire and Austrian Baroque influences. A double set of plate glass doors graced the entrance, alongside a U-shaped driveway for carriages and horses. As you would navigate the Astor, to the left of Peacock Alley resided the Astor dining room. This expansive space showcased Italian Renaissance pilasters, Russian marble columns, and silk hangings in rose pompadour. Directly opposite lied the Garden Court of Palms, a triple-height dining venue adorned with a dome-like roof of amber glass. Here, the Italian architectural influences were elegantly portrayed through grey and terracotta hues, embellished with Pavonazzo marble. The cafe, found on the 34th Street side, was a spacious room finished in English oak and accented with German Renaissance and Flemish decorations. Proceeding to the first floor, you'd find the Astor Gallery, a luxurious space graced with towering French windows and a color scheme of blue, grey, and gold. Nearby, the Colonial Room contrasted its red ambience with white woodwork, adding another layer of complexity to the design palette. On the second floor, a private suite of apartments in Old English oak offered a range of amenities, including large drawing rooms and a butler's pantry. And above the third floor, the hotel transitioned to suites and bedrooms, each offering unique luxuries like individual baths and spacious trunk closets. However, the crown jewel in the Astor was undoubtedly the ballroom. Conceived in the Louis XIV style, this grandiose space could accommodate 700 guests for banquets and 1,200 for concerts. Adorned in shades of ivory, grey and cream, it welcomed the most cherished voices of its day, with season tickets for musical performances costing up to $350, around 12 grand in today's dollars, underscoring the high value placed on cultural offerings held within these hallowed walls. Upon entering the zenith of the hotel, you'd find a paradisiacal roof garden encased in glass, adorned with rattan furnishings in shades of pale green and pink. A stroll along the 34th Street side revealed the Grand Promenade, Peacock Alley, a lofty terrace furnished with a bandstand, fountains and trellises. Adjacent was the Roof Garden restaurant, possessing a high ceiling that stretches 24 feet above the floor. At the corners of this exalted realm were spiral stairways within towers, ascending to the copper roofs of pavilions that stand a staggering 250 feet above the ground level. Thus, from its subterranean machinery to its skyward gardens, from its shaky beginnings to its golden reputation, the Waldorf and Astor hotels embodied both engineering excellence and unparalleled luxury, forever imprinted in New York's architectural and cultural history. Now, from their earliest days, both the Astor and Waldorf hotels became synonymous with glittering social events, with philanthropic dinners and balls frequented by luminaries like Andrew Carnegie. The resplendence extended to hosting dignitaries like Viceroy Li Hungchang of China, who in 1896 imported 100-year-old eggs and even his kitchen staff. Upon his departure, Li graced every female guest with a basket of roses and lavished generous tips on the hotel personnel. The Astor and Waldorf additionally pushed the envelope in hospitality. From Prince Henry of Prussia, who enjoyed a private door and elevator, to a staff forming an emergency bucket brigade for his royal bath, the level of service was unparalleled. Exclusivity extended to guest policies as well, allowing only registered individuals access to rooms, thereby upholding a superlative standard of etiquette. Membership clubs within the premises offered perks like preferential pricing and discounted spa treatments, attracting an even more elite clientele. The Waldorf Astoria Bar, established in 1893, was the sanctuary of the city's financial magnates and vivid personalities, from Diamond Jim Brady to Buffalo Bill Cody. Even the cocktail world owes its heritage to this establishment, credited with inventions like the Rob Roy and the Bobby Burns. But here's the paradox. The very grandeur that made these establishments landmarks of American luxury also sowed the seeds of their own downfall. As we sit here basking in the glory of the Astor and Waldorf hotels' most radiant days, a looming shadow creeps closer, whispering a harrowing question that we can no longer ignore. What catastrophic chain of events could pull these icons down from their lofty heights? Sadly, the halcyon days of the original Astor and Waldorf hotels soon met an inexorable decline, compelled by an interplay of economic downturns, ownership transitions, and societal evolution. Thus, as the years marched on, the Astor family's grip on the hotel industry loosened, signaling a change in leadership that would have profound implications. Initially, these grand hotels had captivated New York City, hosting society's elite and even contributing innovations to the world of cocktails and hospitality. They epitomized luxury, becoming glittering settings for illustrious balls, philanthropic dinners, and visits from foreign dignitaries. But as the 20th century unfolded, fresh competitors emerged. Luxurious new establishments like the St. Regis sprung up, endowed with modern amenities that lured away clientele. The Astor and Waldorf found themselves as relics in a city that had moved forward, the glamorous heart of New York City shifting northward beyond 34th Street. Then, the Great Depression struck in 1929, casting a dark shadow over these citadels of extravagance. Eroded by financial constraints, their luster dulled significantly, setting the stage for a diminishing role in a city always chasing the next big thing. Adding insult to injury, the costs of preserving their architectural grandeur began to spiral out of control. Ensuring their structural integrity while maintaining lavish interiors became an insurmountable challenge, pushing them further into decline. Furthermore, as New York City evolved, so did its land value. The very ground upon which these hotels stood became coveted real estate, more valuable than the aging structures themselves. This paved the way for the demolition of the original Waldorf Astoria in 1928, making room for none other than the Empire State Building. Yet, Although the original Waldorf Astoria was raised to make room for the Empire State Building, the legend was far from over. In 1931, a new Waldorf Astoria was resurrected on Park Avenue, and the name once again captivated the imagination of the public. This new location recaptured much of the original grandeur and became an iconic symbol in its own right, playing host to presidents, celebrities, and dignitaries. While it wasn't completely shielded from the economic and societal forces that had impacted its predecessor, the Park Avenue Waldorf Astoria stood as an enduring beacon of luxury, proving that the allure of a name could transcend time and place. Yet, despite this resurgence, a definitive end was marked for the Astor family's hotel empire on May 3, 1929, when they sold their remaining interests to the developers of the Empire State Building. The original structures disappeared, their once mesmerizing elegance archived in the New York Public Library. But the Waldorf Astoria name lived on, solidifying its place as an irreplaceable jewel in the crown of New York City's rich history. Imagine that you have gone into a time machine and been transported to Hollywood's golden era as an A-list celebrity with a household name in Tinseltown. It's Saturday night, and you've just received an invite from your old friend Clark Gable for a night on the town at the famed Coconut Grove in the legendary Ambassador Hotel of Los Angeles. When you arrive, the air is thick with anticipation and the sweet aroma of gardenia. Celebrities in dazzling gowns and sharp tuxedos glide across the red carpet, their laughter mingling with the soft clinking of champagne glasses. Inside the Coconut Grove, the magic intensifies. The vaulted ceilings, adorned with glimmering chandeliers, cast a golden glow over the dance floor where the big band's brass section gleams under the spotlight. Fred Astaire might whisk a starlet away in a flawless display of dance, or Judy Garland might hop on stage and perform a song or two, while waiters navigate the crowds carrying trays of martinis and canapes. Here at the heart of Hollywood, the night is alive with the promise of endless possibilities, a playground for the rich and famous where the music never stops and the stars never fade. And yet, nothing lasts forever. As decades passed, the luster of the Ambassador Hotel dimmed. The very place where presidents had campaigned and movies were filmed gradually succumbed to the pressures of modernity and economic shifts. By the late 20th century, the hotel, once a beacon of glamour and luxury, faced decline and neglect, leading to its eventual demolition in 2006. In today's episode, we'll take you through its full transition, from pinnacle to rubble, mirroring the fleeting nature of fame and the relentless march of progress that reshapes cities and memories alike as we describe. How Hollywood's most opulent hotel was demolished. The Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles was more than just an elegant stopover. It was a veritable hub for the glitterati and power brokers of the 20th century. And from its inception in the roaring 1920s until its doors closed in the 1980s, before its eventual demolition in 2006, the hotel was a beacon for stars, statesmen, and everyone in between who mattered. Indeed, its famed Coconut Grove nightclub was virtually a second home to the Hollywood elite, and names like Frank Sinatra, Judy Garland, and Barbra Streisand were just a few of the luminaries who graced its stage, contributing to the night spot's mythic status. Stars such as Marilyn Monroe and Clark Gable were also regulars, seeking refuge in the hotel's opulent embrace and adding a dash of silver screen magic to the ambience. And politically, the Ambassador was equally significant. It hosted an impressive roster of US presidents, from Hoover through Nixon, and welcomed heads of state from across the globe. Moreover, the hotel's Fiesta Room played host to the Academy Awards itself during a pivotal era from 1930 to 1943. A period when the Oscars began taking the shape we recognize today, including the suspense-filled envelope reveal. Yet not all was glittering celebrations. In 1968, the hotel became the backdrop for a darker chapter, when Robert F. Kennedy delivered his victory speech in its ballroom, only to be assassinated moments later. Despite such horrific moments added to the hotel's lustrous ledger, the Ambassador soldiered on into the 1970s and beyond, continuing to host high-profile events, and Sammy Davis Jr. not only performed there but also brought a touch of 70s flair to the Coconut Grove, reimagining it with shag carpets and a disco ball, ensuring the party went on in true Hollywood style. Furthermore, the cultural and historical impact of the Ambassador Hotel stretched well beyond its luxurious rooms and star-studded galas. Certainly, it was pivotal in transforming Wilshire Boulevard from a mere dirt road into a vibrant urban artery. And this transformation attracted a kaleidoscope of visitors from silent film stars to international dignitaries, cementing the hotel's place as a cornerstone of Los Angeles' social landscape. But how could such an iconic and enduring structure be destroyed when so many other, lesser-known buildings from early Hollywood still stand to this very day? In order to find out, let's flip over to the next chapter and begin where it all started. In the fledgling days of the 1910s, as Los Angeles burst from its seams with rapid growth, the concept for the Ambassador Hotel took shape. And this period, marked by an influx of movie stars, moguls and dignitaries, called for accommodations that were nothing short of grand. Now, Harry Culver, a hotelier with a keen eye for grandeur, and the namesake and founder of none other than Culver City, California, was among the visionaries who dreamt up a retreat that would declare Los Angeles a prime global destination. Now, the blueprints themselves for the Ambassador Hotel were nothing if not grandiose. Spanning 24 acres, the property wasn't just about rooms. It promised a golf course, a bowling alley, and the soon-to-be iconic Coconut Grove nightclub. Thus, from the very beginning, it was envisioned as a playground for the elite, a place where Hollywood's finest could revel in the highest standards of dining and entertainment available in the City of Angels. To translate these high hopes into concrete and marble, the founders enlisted the architectural prowess of Myron Hunt and Welton Becket. Hunt, an adept in Spanish and Mediterranean revival architecture, was tasked with crafting the exteriors and communal areas. And Becket, whose reputation in commercial architecture was ascending, took charge of the interior designs and creature comforts. Their collaborative efforts birthed a building that exuded sophistication with its Spanish flair and Mediterranean touches. Intricate archways, elaborate tilework, and verdant tropical gardens enveloped guests in luxury. And the Coconut Grove became a standout feature, complete with a waterfall, mechanical monkeys, and a ceiling that mimicked a starry night, ensuring a sensory experience that was second to none. But this architectural masterpiece was as practical as it was beautiful. The hotel's design allowed the social butterflies and power brokers of the time to shop, dine, and entertain themselves without ever stepping off the property. Then, June 1919 saw the first bricks laid, with the project overcoming considerable obstacles. Located on a mere dirt path that would become the bustling Wilshire Boulevard, the site initially seemed too remote. Yet the founders were undeterred, pouring immense resources into transforming this patch of land into a vibrant epicenter of social and cultural activity. And construction progressed swiftly, despite early doubts. The grand lobby was a parade of opulence, from Italian fireplaces and crystal chandeliers to oriental carpets and sumptuous draperies. But it was the Coconut Grove that captured most of the imagination and budget. Designed to be the jewel in the hotel's crown, it featured Mediterranean arches, a flowing waterfall, and whimsically suspended mechanical monkeys, all under a faux starlit sky. As 1920 waned and the opening day drew close, excitement reached a fever pitch. Every detail had been meticulously planned, and the architects and builders behind this opulent establishment radiated confidence. The Ambassador wasn't merely opening, it was primed to become the crown jewel of Los Angeles, a vivid declaration of the city's rise as a nexus of luxury, glamour, and global appeal. The Ambassador Hotel flung open its doors on New Year's Day 1921, heralding a new era of opulence in Los Angeles. Yet it was the Coconut Grove nightclub, launching with a bang on April 21st of the same year that truly put the establishment on the map as the city's hotspot for top-tier entertainment. With its tropical and somewhat fantastical decor, Coconut Grove offered an escape to a mystical paradise, and visitors were welcomed by doors adorned with gold-leafed palms, archways reminiscent of Moorish relics, a soothing waterfall, and a ceiling that mimicked a starry midnight sky. The venue even boasted mechanical monkeys, their amber eyes shining as they swung from papier-mâché palm trees, a whimsical touch borrowed from Rudolph Valentino's movie set for The Chic. Almost instantly, the allure of Coconut Grove drew a glittering crowd of Hollywood's finest, alongside socialites and political dignitaries, all vying for a spot in its exclusive 1,000-seat hall or one of the coveted annual membership boxes. Therefore, it was more than a nightclub. It was a veritable playground for the influential. And over the decades, the stage at Coconut Grove showcased a parade of legendary performers. From Bing Crosby, who first found fame there with the Rhythm Boys, to Judy Garland, Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, and Nat King Cole. The club was alive with the voices and tunes that shaped a century. Notably, Crosby's dulcet tones became a staple at the Grove, while Garland immortalized the venue by recording her live album Garland at the Grove there in 1958, an impressive feat completed in just one take. But the nightclub wasn't just a stage for musical icons, it also hosted the Academy Awards on 5 occasions between 1930 and 1943. These ceremonies, held at Coconut Grove, played a pivotal role in shaping the Oscars into the spectacle they are today, complete with suspenseful category reveals and a more competitive edge. Beyond the glitz of its performances and red carpet events, Coconut Grove was a nexus for Los Angeles' elite social gatherings, and each twilight at the Grove was steeped in elegance and a splash of enchantment, offering a sanctuary where Hollywood luminaries and dignitaries could converge for an evening of relaxation and entertainment, all under one ornate roof. The club therefore embodied the vibrant heart of early 20th century Los Angeles, coming to life each night with an air of something almost ethereal. By the time the 1950s rolled around, however, the sheen of Coconut Grove began to dim. With the rise of new entertainment spots dotting Los Angeles, the once unrivaled hotspot found itself vying to retain its crown as the city's premier gathering place. And despite a series of makeovers in 1939 and 1957 aimed at rejuvenating the storied hotel, the Grove's old-world charm was increasingly eclipsed by fresher, more youth-centric venues that captivated the city's burgeoning younger crowd. Yet the Coconut Grove persisted as a cultural beacon, playing host to a roster of high-profile acts. Among these was Frank Sinatra, whose resonant voice filled the hall, Lena Horne, who brought her mesmerizing presence to the stage, and Barbra Streisand, whose 1963 performance at the Grove marked a pivotal moment as she teetered on the brink of fame, soon to enchant Broadway audiences as Fanny Brice in Funny Girl. However, it would be a shocking event that occurred 5 short years later at the Ambassador that would forever etch the hotel's walls in infamy. On what was supposed to be a high-spirited and optimistic evening of the 5th of June 1968, the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles transformed from a glittering hub of social life into the somber backdrop for a pivotal moment in U.S. history. You see, Robert F. Kennedy, then a U.S. Senator and promising presidential hopeful, had clinched the California primary, optioning to host a celebration and rally at the Embassy Ballroom of the Ambassador, as the night buzzed with an electric mix of hope and jubilation. The enthusiastic crowd, rallying with chants of "We want Bobby," was ripe with anticipation. However, the mood shifted dramatically when Kennedy, attempting to address the crowd, faced a malfunctioning microphone and humorously chided, "Can we get something that works?" These words, light-hearted yet poignant, would unexpectedly be his last in public. Sirhan Sirhan, a Palestinian immigrant driven by anti-Zionist sentiments, approached Kennedy as he exited the stage. With a concealed Ivor Johnson .22 LR revolver, Sirhan fired multiple rounds, striking Kennedy in the head and back. The chaos that ensued was not just a physical scramble, but a metaphorical shattering of the American dream, and Kennedy succumbed to his injuries nearly 25 hours later at Good Samaritan Hospital. The ripple effects of this tragedy were immediate and far-reaching. The Ambassador, a beacon of Hollywood's golden era, now stood as a grim reminder of the nation's loss. And the grandeur of its past, marked by star-studded galas and political gatherings, now felt like echoes in an empty room, overshadowed by the stark reality of Kennedy's demise. Following the assassination, the hotel seemed to wear its history like a heavy cloak. Its halls, once lively with the whispers of the elite and the clinking of champagne glasses, now murmured with the solemn tones of a site marked by national tragedy. Therefore, as the 1970s dawned, the Ambassador Hotel struggled to reclaim its former luster. The neighborhood around Wilshire, previously thriving and dynamic, succumbed to the creeping blight of economic downturns. Crime, substance abuse, and poverty infiltrated the area, further tarnishing the hotel's appeal and financial viability. Yet, despite these challenges, the Ambassador held on to its unique place in American cultural memory, and the hotel's famed Coconut Grove nightclub, a one-time playground for Hollywood's elite, faltered in its glamour. In a bid to rejuvenate its appeal, Sammy Davis Jr. spearheaded a 1970s revamp, rechristening it as the Now Grove. Yet, this effort to sync with the contemporary nightclub vibe didn't resonate with the intended audience, as the hotel and its environs had faded from their glittering heights. Compounding these woes was the burgeoning competition from sleeker, more modern venues sprouting throughout Los Angeles. These new destinations diverted both tourists and locals, diminishing the Ambassador's draw. Its aging structure and dated amenities could hardly compete, leaving it a relic of a bygone era. By the mid-1980s, drastic measures saw the closure of 350 out of 500 rooms to cut costs and conserve resources, but this retrenchment barely made a dent in the downward spiral. And by 1989, the inevitable unfolded. The hotel shuttered entirely, a victim to urban decay and the relentless evolution of Los Angeles' socio-economic scene. The Ambassador, once the jewel of LA's social life, had irreversibly lost its luster and relevance in the city's ever-changing high society. And yet, nobody actually believed that the structure itself would be demolished, and it would take more than a decade for this ever to be a real possibility. In the final chapter, we'll reveal the epic fight to save the Ambassador, and exactly how it failed. In 1989, the Ambassador Hotel checked out its final guest, but it didn't take long for the iconic Los Angeles landmark to become a hotbed of preservationist fervor. The Los Angeles Conservancy, backed by the Art Deco Society of Los Angeles, leapt into action, eager to shield the historic structure from the cold, hard swing of the wrecking ball. And with its storied walls at risk, the Ambassador Hotel's tale took a twist when the Los Angeles Unified School District snapped up the dilapidated edifice in 2001. With that, their plans were a bit of out with the old and in with the new, a school campus. This set the stage for a tug-of-war that pitted sentimental history against educational progress. And the preservationists were not just a passionate bunch, they were a loud one too. They embarked on a crusade through the 1990s and into the early 2000s, armed with public campaigns, history-filled soirees, and a myriad of proposals to breathe new life into the property. Ideas floated about converting the Ambassador into a swanky resort or perhaps a slice of an academic village. Hollywood even pitched in, with stars like Diane Keaton championing the cause from the Conservancy's board. Yet despite their spirited efforts and the public backing of silver screen luminaries, the preservationists faced an uphill battle. In 2004, the school district, weighing the hefty price tag of renovation against the benefits of a bespoke educational facility, opted to proceed with demolition plans. You see, the school district contended that the financial burden and logistical nightmares of revamping the Ambassador simply didn't stack up against the straightforward advantages of starting from scratch. But this decision did not sit well with the preservation community, who felt sidelined in a semblance of public discourse that, in their view, never aimed to reach a compromise. The demolition decision, they argued, ignored the deep historical roots and architectural splendor of the Ambassador, not to mention the tantalizing potential of adaptive reuse. As the dust settled, the LA Unified School District's plan took physical form, and in 2005, demolition began. Yet not all was lost to the echoes of history. The school district preserved a few gems. The famed entrance, the Coconut Grove nightclub, and a slice of the coffee shop, designed by renowned architect Paul Williams, were all integrated into the new educational complex. Thus, the battle over the Ambassador Hotel's fate highlighted a perennial urban dilemma: the clash between preserving the physical echoes of the past and making room for future chapters. While the preservationists didn't get their fairy tale ending, the remnants of the Ambassador Hotel still whisper tales of a glamorous, star-studded past to students who might otherwise wander through less inspired hallways. Therefore, despite the Ambassador Hotel's physical disappearance, its legacy continues to be felt in Los Angeles. The site's transformation into the Robert F. Kennedy Community Schools complex has been a bittersweet endeavor, with the new educational facility serving as both a tribute to the hotel's history and a painful reminder of what was lost. The school's curriculum and mission also reflect the Senator's commitment to social justice, with each of the 6 autonomous pilot schools having a distinct focus on issues such as human rights, environmental sustainability, and community engagement. Through this educational endeavor, the spirit of the Ambassador Hotel lives on, marrying history with progress in a community-centered narrative that honors its illustrious past while looking forward to a modern future. Take a second and imagine you've been placed in a time machine and whisked away to live the sumptuous life of an A-list star during Golden Era Hollywood. As you decide how to spend your Saturday night in Tinseltown with your luxury-loving co-stars, you receive an invite to meet up with a few actors and actresses at Hollywood's most luxurious hangout, the Garden of Alla Hotel. And when you arrive, you are instantly captivated by the sprawling Moorish architecture and lush tropical gardens that seem more like a mirage than reality in the Los Angeles heat. Stepping into the lobby, the scene is alive with the glamorous elite. There's legendary leading man Humphrey Bogart sharing a joke with the ever-charismatic Errol Flynn, both leaning casually against the grand piano. Nearby, Marlene Dietrich and Greta Garbo engage in a deep conversation, their legendary faces half hidden in the dim, sultry lighting. The air is thick with the fragrance of cigarette smoke mingled with expensive perfumes as jazz music softly serenades the crowd of glittering stars. Yet behind this luminous display of Hollywood's finest hour, the aura of a heartbreaking fate lingers. This vibrant sanctuary, alive with the spirit of an era that created modern celebrity, was destined to get demolished. The walls that harbored secrets, dreams, and the unrestrained joy of icons would soon be torn down, replaced by the cold anonymity of a commercial complex. In today's episode, we'll explain the history of the legendary Garden of Alla and how its destruction was not just the end of a pricey hotel, but a poignant farewell to a golden age as we describe why Hollywood's swankiest hotel was demolished. In 1927, the Garden of Alla Hotel swung open its doors and strutted onto the Hollywood scene like a starlet ready for her close-up. Originally the estate of silent film siren Alla Nazimova, this Sunset Boulevard haunt quickly morphed into a hotbed of glitz, glamour, and the occasional scandal, embodying the essence of Hollywood's golden age. And the hotel's Spanish-style villas, tucked amidst lush, whispering gardens and an infamous black C-shaped pool, were more than mere lodging. They were a backdrop to the lives of the stars who frequented them. Thus, from its inception, the Garden of Alla was a bastion of exclusivity, offering the crème de la crème of Hollywood's elite a secluded paradise where they could frolic away from the flashbulbs of the press. Now, with its reputation for discretion and opulence, the hotel soon became a pilgrimage site for anyone who was or aspired to be anyone in Tinseltown. And the management knew the assignment: keep the stars happy and the paparazzi guessing. Indeed, this secret source of privacy mixed with luxury ensured that a night at the Garden of Alla wasn't just a stay, it was a statement. Furthermore, the hotel's guest list read like a who's who of 20th century icons. For example, F. Scott Fitzgerald, that sharp chronicler of American excess, camped out here during his Hollywood years, penning the drafts of what would be his final opus, The Last Tycoon. And Errol Flynn, the swashbuckling Aussie with a penchant for mischief, turned the hotel into his personal playground, his antics becoming as legendary as his films. Whether by the bar or by the pool, Flynn's magnetism ensured there was never a dull moment around him. But the hotel's allure wasn't lost on the likes of Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall either. Their storied romance added a dash of sweet to the cocktail of personalities that frequented the garden. The literary set found a haven here too, with Dorothy Parker and Robert Benchley spearheading an Algonquin Round Table West, where wit was the currency and laughter a given. Yet it wasn't just the literary and film elite who were drawn to the garden's enchanted environs. Musical maestros like Igor Stravinsky composed timeless pieces within its walls, while George Gershwin could be found tickling the ivories, serenading an impromptu gathering of Hollywood royalty in the lobby. Therefore, the Garden of Alla wasn't merely a hotel, it was a microcosm of Hollywood's most golden era. Under its roofs and amongst its gardens, the lines between reality and performance blurred as stars from across the art spectrum mingled, creating a melting pot of creativity. As the lights finally dimmed on the Garden of Alla and its original building was demolished, its legacy was ironically cemented in the annals of Hollywood history. Far from being just another hotel, it had served as a cultural crucible, a nexus for the era's titans, and a birthplace for the tales and scandals destined for the silver screen's lore. For, as Golden Era Hollywood gossip columnist Sheila Graham put it, there is no place for a Garden of Alla that for one brief moment was Camelot. It was inevitable that Hollywood as we knew it and its satellite, Alla's Garden, should disappear together. How exactly did this legendary locale get its start in early Hollywood, similar to the stars it would play host to for decades? To get our answer, we'll have to roll back to the turn of the century, in the next chapter. The Garden of Alla Hotel, a name that twinkles with the same glamour as the Hollywood Walk of Fame, began its illustrious journey in the early 1910s, not as a hotel, but as a private estate dubbed Havenhurst. Crafted by the enterprising William H. Hay in 1913, this 2.5-acre slice of heaven at 8152 Sunset Boulevard was destined for stardom. By 1918, Alla Nazimova, a silent film star with the dramatic chops and violet eyes to match, had leased the estate, succumbing to its charms. And by the next year, she couldn't resist. She bought it outright. With a visionary's zeal, Nazimova poured a cool $65,000, equal to around $1.1 million today, into revamps, shaping her new domain into a salute to her Crimean roots, with a Black Sea-shaped swimming pool and lush, manicured landscapes. Nazimova, ever the clever hostess, then christened her revamped abode the Garden of Alla, spelled like her first name, without the letter H at the end, winking at her own name and nodding to Robert S. Hitchens' novel The Garden of Alla. And her home quickly became a magnet for Hollywood's elite, known for its heady artistic salons that attracted a colorful tapestry of guests, many from the lesbian community, buzzing with discussions on literature, philosophy, and the arts. However, as the glitter of the 1920s began to dim, so did Nazimova's financial stability. Her cinematic ventures had not paid off, leaving her cradling a wilting purse. It was then that the whispers of a new venture reached her ears. Why not turn this star-studded sanctuary into a hotel? Intrigued and desperate, Nazimova let the idea bloom into a grand plan. With the pomp of a true cinema queen, she transformed her estate in 1926, commissioning the aid of architect Frank L. Moline, whose name was already etched on some of LA's finest buildings. Together, they dreamed up the Garden of Alla Hotel, envisioning a cluster of 25 luxury Spanish Moorish villas nestled among the gardens, each a private retreat with the sumptuous allure of old Hollywood. Moline's master plan was a symphony of aesthetics and function. The famous pool retained its central cameo, around which the new villas were carefully placed to foster a sense of secluded splendor. And each villa was a fortress of privacy, with teak floors, heavy Spanish furniture, and modern amenities that included kitchenettes and bathrooms, perfect for the who's who of Tinseltown craving discreet luxury. The transformation was nothing short of a scene from a high-budget film. Construction crews became unsung heroes, working diligently through 1926, ensuring that Moline's vision, complete with the preservation of grand old trees and the integration of new lavish structures, was realized without a hitch. And the hotel's grand opening on the 9th of January 1927 was an affair to remember, an 18-hour gala that saw the crème de la crème of Hollywood descend upon the Garden of Alla. As night cloaked the city, the estate burst into a kaleidoscope of lights, enchanting every onlooker and promising many starlit nights to come. Then, subsequent tweaks and tunes were made to perfect the guest experience. The on-site restaurant transformed to make room for more guest spaces, and a lively bar by the pool became the new hub for the glitterati. Amidst the advent of talkies, some villas were even soundproofed, accommodating the creative sanctuaries needed by the era's film icons. By 1930, as the garden gracefully evolved under new ownership, it subtly changed its moniker by adding an H to become the Garden of Alla Hotel, a move that delicately shifted its legacy from its founder's personal tribute to a standalone symbol of Hollywood's golden era. Therefore, although the 1920s hotel was a beacon of Hollywood luxury, its best days were yet to come, as LA entered its golden era. If golden era Hollywood's luxurious epoch could be distilled into one beguiling locale, it could arguably be the Garden of Alla Hotel. Throughout the 1930s, this charming oasis not only provided a sumptuous backdrop for Tinseltown's glitterati, but also functioned as the social nucleus of a burgeoning film industry. Located conveniently near the major studios, yet securely tucked away behind lush greenery, the garden offered a sanctuary where luminaries could cavort with abandon under the Southern California sun. In an era shadowed by the Great Depression, the hotel emerged as a glamorous enclave where hedonism was not just a pastime, but a fine art. The verdant grounds and quaint villas of the garden became scenes of storied soirees and furtive romances. Imagine the tableau: Humphrey Bogart with a cigarette dangling from his lips, Errol Flynn's rakish grin lighting up the garden paths, and Greta Garbo's enigmatic presence by the infamous pool, a magnet for spontaneous revelry. And this iconic watering hole wasn't merely a playground for movie stars. It was a crucible of creative alchemy. Here, the wits of New York's Algonquin Round Table, led by the sharp-tongued Dorothy Parker and the ever-droll Robert Benchley, found a West Coast roost. And the literary elite's infusion into the hotel's fabric elevated its prestige, making it a pulsating bridge between East Coast intellectualism and Hollywood's burgeoning glamour. So, what was it about the garden that made it such fertile ground for creativity? Perhaps it was the informal mingling of minds by the poolside, where composers like Igor Stravinsky could exchange notes with screen sirens, or in the bar where a struggling F. Scott Fitzgerald might find inspiration for his next screenplay amidst the clink of glasses. Furthermore, as the world spun into the 1940s, engulfed by the turmoil of World War II, the garden's allure did not wane, unlike many places in America. Instead, It adapted, becoming a beacon for those in the throes of wartime anxiety. Gloria Stewart, of later Titanic fame, epitomized this era, turning her residence into a culinary haven where scarcity was defied with lavish dinner parties that often morphed into fervent brainstorming sessions. These gatherings, rich with the aroma of rationed delights, sowed the seeds of numerous Hollywood classics. Therefore, in Golden Era Hollywood, this A-list haven wasn't just a hotel, it was a microcosm of the industry itself. Yet, in the post-war years, as America changed rapidly from depression to optimism and the baby boom generation began, the Garden of Alla began to be seen as old hat, and trouble was afoot. The Garden of Alla Hotel, a once sparkling jewel in Hollywood's crown, faced its twilight years in the 1950s with the same dramatic flair with which it had lived its golden days. Once the heartbeat of Hollywood's social whirl, the Garden began to wilt under the weight of a changing industry and shifting cultural mores. Specifically, the allure of this storied sanctuary diminished as the glitterati who once sought its luxurious anonymity began putting down roots in the lush enclaves of Beverly Hills and beyond, eschewing temporary hotel stays for more permanent digs. Concurrently, the rise of sleek modern hotels with all the latest conveniences lured away those who might once have reveled in the Garden's old-world charm, and the once irresistible magnet for celebrities and creative mavericks was finding itself edged out by the next generation of accommodations. Adding to its challenges, the social fabric of Hollywood itself was transforming. The 1950s were marred by the chill of the Red Scare, casting a shadow over the Garden's freewheeling ethos. Where once the air was thick with the promise of secrets and scandal, qualities that had burnished its legend, there now hovered a palpable tension, a sense of watchful eyes and whispered accusations. And the once celebrated revelries that defined the Garden's character became liabilities, maligned by a society increasingly buttoned up and conservative. Efforts to revitalize the Garden of Alla spluttered like a fading starlet's comeback attempt. Renovations and management shake-ups attempted to reclaim the lost mystique, but fell short, and ownership shuffled through hopeful hands, each set trying to capture the elusive magic that had defined the hotel's better days. By 1957, when the property passed to Morris Markowitz and Isidore Rosanus for a mere $500,000, the writing was on the proverbial wall, and Rosanus's untimely demise 5 months later only hastened the inevitable. The final nail in the coffin was hammered in April 1959, when Bart Lytton of Lytton Savings and Loan acquired the Garden, not to restore it, but to raise it. His vision was a stark departure from the past, a modern bank building to house his financial empire, a symbol of progress indifferent to the nostalgic cries of Hollywood's old guard. As news of the impending demolition spread, a collective lament rose from the Hollywood community. Time magazine captured the sentiment in a poignant piece, reminiscing about the days when the town still managed to be wacky in the grand manner. Thus, in August of 1959, the Garden threw open its doors one last time for a grand farewell party, a swan song that drew over 1,000 mourners. They came to pay homage to the spirit of Alla Nazimova, the visionary founder, screening her film Salome as a tribute amidst the Garden's fading echoes. But what followed was a macabre auction, where bits and pieces of Hollywood history were parceled out to the highest bidder. From opulent furnishings to kitschy keepsakes, each item was a tangible piece of the grand narrative that the Garden of Alla had authored over the decades. As the wrecking balls tore through the structure, a chapter closed not just on a building, but on an epoch. The landscape of Hollywood was irrevocably altered, its once vibrant heart now a casualty of progress and changing tastes. In 1960, the iconic Garden of Alla Hotel gave way to the modern silhouette of the Lytton Savings Building, marking a significant transformation along the Sunset Boulevard skyline. Spearheaded by Bart Lytton, president of Lytton Savings and Loan, this new development was designed by architect Kurt Meyer, whose vision embodied the mid-century modern ethos of clean lines and functional aesthetics. Inside, the space was bathed in natural light, creating an inviting atmosphere for bank customers and a work-friendly environment for its staff. By 1962, the adjacent Lytton Centre was completed, introducing a museum and auditorium that expanded the building's role from a financial hub to a cultural nexus within the community. As the decades unfolded, the Lytton Savings Building, along with its Lytton Centre of the Visual Arts, became pillars of the local arts scene. The centre's museum hosted a kaleidoscope of exhibitions, attracting art lovers and artists alike, showcasing works ranging from modern sculptures to historical paintings. Meanwhile, its auditorium became a favoured venue for a variety of community events, from thought-provoking lectures to vibrant performances, echoing the creative spirit once nurtured by its predecessor, the Garden of Alla. Despite its cultural contributions, the fortunes of Lytton Savings were not to last. By 1968, the bank succumbed to bankruptcy, heralding yet another evolution of this iconic site, and the building's next incarnation was less illustrious, a strip mall. As the 21st century dawned, the narrative of the site took another dramatic turn. The early 2010s brought proposals for a new mixed-use development by none other than the celebrated architect Frank Gehry. This project, while promising revitalization and urban renewal, sparked a contentious debate among preservationists and developers. The former saw the Lytton Savings Building as an irreplaceable artifact of architectural history, while the latter argued for the necessity of modernization and increased housing density in the burgeoning city. Simultaneously recognized for its architectural significance, the site itself was designated as a Los Angeles Historic Cultural Monument in 2016, a nod to its storied past and enduring presence on Sunset Boulevard. But, in a twist befitting the cinematic history it harbors, the site, formerly known as the Garden of Alla Hotel and later the Lytton Savings Building, has encountered yet another plot twist in its ongoing narrative. In April 2021, the demolition of the Lytton Savings Building cleared the stage for a new act, the proposed Gehry development. However, contrary to previous expectations that this project would swiftly rise from the rubble, the grand designs have been stalled and the land has taken an unexpected turn back onto the real estate market. As of today, the lot at 8150 Sunset Boulevard, once the home of the legendary Garden of Alla, stands vacant, its future uncertain. And despite the current state of limbo, the spirit of the site's storied past continues to resonate with those who cherish Hollywood's golden era. Efforts to honor the legacy of the Garden of Alla are ongoing, with proposals to integrate elements of its glamorous history into any future development.